Hello, welcome back. We are going to continue reading chapter 3 of the Santa Ana, the people, the Pueblo, and the history of Tamaya. Castro returns. In September 1581, the Rodriguez-Camuscado group left the Quires lands along the Rio Grande. They traveled east to the pueblos of the Galisto Basin, and then, like Coronado before them, on to the plains, the land of the buffalo. On their return journey, they stopped at one of the easternmost pueblos. Badly in need of food, the Spaniards first requested supplies, and then, when the pueblo refused to meet their demands, used force to obtain provisions. Throughout the rest of their journey back to the Rio Grande, they reported that they were offered food at each pueblo where they stopped. One of the Spaniards, Hernan Gallegos, wrote that the news had spread throughout the province that the soldiers had taken 9 loads of flour from the first pueblo to the east. As they moved on, they were given exactly the same amount, no more and no less, at the other pueblos. Although Gallegos hoped that the pueblos would become accustomed to giving such tribute, he admitted that they offered food out of fear rather than from any desire to befriend us. As the Spaniards marched west through the Galisto Basin to the Rio Grande, they grew ever more aware that the pueblos resented their demands. By late fall, the Spaniards realized clearly that the pueblos wanted to kill them, and that the people of the entire region were gathering for this purpose. They decided that under the circumstances, little would be gained by staying. They had already explored the region and reported on it. Clearly, their presence was unwelcome, and the friars could not reap any harvest there at the moment without an interpreter. By January 1582, Chamuscado's men had decided to return to New Spain. 2 friars, however, chose to stay behind with some of the Indian servants to begin their work at Paure, a pueblo besides the Rio Grande, near the modern site of Bernalillo. The soldiers reached Mexico City in May 1582. Soon news and rumors of the northern lands began to spread throughout New Spain. They told of the prosperous pueblo fields and fine plazas, and of the plains rich in buffalo, and they reported that this region had promising mining areas. While the pueblos along the Rio Grande tended their crops, gathered the harvest, and made ready for winter, the tales spread throughout New Spain. Once again the men of Castro heard that the land to the north was an abundant place, where a man could find many mines, since the region is rich in them, as well as in woods, pastures, and water. By midsummer, one of the Indian servants who had stayed in Paure made his way south with disturbing news. He himself had seen one of the friars killed, and he believed that the other friar and the Indian boys who remained there were also dead. The Franciscan order, which had sent the friars north, urged Spanish leaders to take action. Someone, they said, should go north to learn what had happened to the friars and to help them should they still be alive. Antonio de Espijo volunteered to make the journey and received permission to organize a small expedition. With Friar Bernardino Beltron and 14 soldiers, he set out for the north in November 1582. As Espijo and his men traveled up the Rio Grande, they were told the friars were dead. With confirmation of the friars' fate, their mission was fulfilled, but they did not return to New Spain. Eager to explore the northern lands, they traveled on, reaching the region near Paure in February 1583, fearing that Castro had come to punish them for the death of the friars. The Pueblos fled to the Sierra. Although the midwinter cold caused great suffering among their women and children, the people remained in the mountains as long as the Spaniards were in the area. Espejo's men followed them and asked them, in a friendly way, to return to their homes. While waiting near Paure for the Pueblos to return, the Spaniards inspected some pueblos, finding large quantities of corn, beans, green and sun-dried calabashes, and other vegetables, turkeys, a great deal of pottery, and many ores of different colors. The explorers helped themselves to food and supplies, and they also received presents of turkeys from the northern pueblos. Still, the people of Paure were very frightened, and for this reason would not come down from the mountains. At least, after waiting for a week, Castro moved on. Traveling north, the Spaniards entered the lands of the Quiris people. These people, similar to those of Paure in their dress and their respects, had also been present at the death of the friars. Within the region, the Spaniards learned, stood 5 pueblos housing as many as 15,000 people. Nearby, the people cultivated many fields of corn. The pueblos were governed by caciques, but none of these leaders had authority beyond his own pueblo. Espejo and his men visited several pueblos near this area, including one that they named La Milpa Llana. At San Felipe, the people gave them corn, tortillas, turkeys, and pinole, and traded some very fine buffalo hides for sleigh bells and small iron articles. Next, the Spaniards visited Zia, a pueblo with 5 large plazas. Zia was also a Quiris pueblo, but Espejo believed that it was the center of a separate province. The Spaniards first raised the flag in the name of His Majesty and took possession of the pueblo, and then put up a cross and explained its meaning to the Zia people. Near a sierra in this province, Espejo's group met large numbers of people who gave the Spaniards cotton blankets and ample supplies of corn, turkey, and bread made of corn flour. The explorers were told of another province to the northwest, and of mines nearby in the Sierra. From the valley of Rio Jemez, Espejo's group went west to Zuni and Hopi, stopping at Zuni a second time on the return journey. There they held a council, and all but 9 of the Spaniards voted to return to New Spain. Since they had learned the fate of Fray Rodriguez and the others, which was what they had been sent to do, Espejo, however, still wanted to search for mines and refused to end the expedition. He led the remaining soldiers east towards the Rio Grande. As they traveled, they heard that all provinces were waiting to kill them. Along the Rio Grande, south of Paure, the Indians refused to give them any food, and no women or children could be seen in any of the pueblos. Some of the men scoffed at the Spaniards as they passed. At Paure, All but 30 of the residents had fled to the mountains. Those who remained mocked the Spaniards from the roof of the pueblo and would not come down. Angered by this resistance, Espejo's men attacked the pueblo. They seized those natives who showed themselves, and when some of the Indians evaded capture, they set fire to the big pueblo of Paure. The soldiers killed 16 prisoners, in addition to those who died in the fire. Other captives, who did not seem to belong to Paula, were released. We will stop here and continue reading next time. This chapter is this many more pages long. So we will continue next time. Thank you for joining me.